If you don't want to sell your business, don't. Money's not going to make a difference unless you know exactly what you want to do with it. Now, I don't mean, do you understand how treasury bonds work, or that at 7.2% your money will compound and double every 10 years. I mean, what do you actually want to do with the rest of your life? What do you want to allocate your time and resources to? More granularly, what do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? If it's not a compelling reason to do that, just don't. I'm Arthur Petropoulos, the managing partner and president here at Hillview Partners. We're a lower middle market investment banking, M&A, and capital advisory firm, helping companies generating typically $1 million to $10 million a year in pre-tax earnings or profit to sell their businesses or to secure capital. So time and time again, every day we talk to 5 people a day who are maybe thinking about selling their business. Sometimes it's something they want to do now, sometimes it's something they want to do in the future. Inevitably, everybody sells a business, whether it's to your family and whether it's for $0, but the business transitions, it trades hands at some point. And so usually every kind of 7 to 8 years within running a business, people kind of pick their head up and say, I've been growing this quite a bit. What does the next chapter have in store to me? What do I want to do? How do I avoid these things I don't like doing? How do I do more of these things that I do like doing? So in today's video, we wanted to walk through the 4 typical paths people take after selling their business. These would be kind of the 4 reasons, objectives, next seasons in life that people pursue. And from our experience, I'd say if one of these 4 does not appeal to you, then you're better off just not selling the business. The first of these is going to be nonprofits, philanthropic efforts, charity work. And so people say, I've been working very hard to make this business successful, to make money, and I want to further this cause. Whether it's health, religious, something community-oriented, whatever it may be, oftentimes these philanthropic efforts or next seasons of life really come into people's minds, and what ultimately happens is they want to spend more time on doing that while the business is still taking up the majority of their mental bandwidth. And so the exit of the business, yes, the money helps in pursuing these things, in allocating the resources towards them, but more importantly, it's the mental bandwidth. Now you're not bogged down with some of the business elements, and you can now focus your time on pursuing some of these nonprofit, philanthropic, charitable endeavors. This is kind of the giving back, if you will, quadrant of potential futures. And again, we're oversimplifying in this video. It's not to say if someone selected a different path that they wouldn't have some philanthropic effort. There's a little bit of a blending here, but for clarity's sake, we're going to make this look like a 4-slice pizza here. And so the second is academia or teaching. You know, and many times we think of teaching as kind of donating or imparting the wisdom on the next generation of people. And so we've sold a lot of companies where the executives or ownership ultimately went into academia, whether on a collegiate level in a formal professor basis or as more kind of an adjunct, or many other ways of doing it, whether it's been through churches, again, communities, temples, mosques, schools, whatever it may be, but more just content creation in the sense of writing books, things of that nature, but imparting knowledge to the next generation. So again, similar to the nonprofit sphere, this is the ability to not just have the money to sustain and live a life in the future that's nice, but having, again, the mental bandwidth and freedom to pursue these things. And while one is still young, you know, I think the challenge sometimes is you could run your business forever, and for some people that is the right decision. But if you do exit, you want to exit with enough time and enough clarity and bandwidth and resource, if you will, mentally and from an energy perspective, to be able to pursue some of these things. And so a lot of times that's what we've seen as people's kind of next chapter or next act of the play. They sell a business when they're 60 to 65 to 70, and they spend 5 years teaching as kind of a way of winding down into a more formal retirement. So that's number 2. Number 3 is other business endeavors. And this takes different shapes. So there's some people that say, I want to sell my business to get to the next chapter of making it even bigger. And you'd say, well, that seems kind of contradictory, but it's not really the case. So if you think about it, someone has developed and built a business over 20, 25 years. The vast majority of their net worth oftentimes is tied up in this business. Even when it's not the vast majority or even the majority, a significant portion, let's say, of someone's net worth is tied up in the business. And so oftentimes the structure of selling the business is selling 80, 90% of the business and then staying with the business, retaining 10%, but bringing on an outside capital partner, private equity firm, strategic, family office, somebody who's going to monetize or allow the owner to take a lot of chips off the table to, again, kind of access the wealth they've developed through creating their business, but then also this partner is going to provide all of the growth capital necessary to scale the business beyond. So a lot of times people say to us, I'm between a rock and a hard place. I really see the future of this business. I really want to grow it as big as it can get. However, I want the security of the capital in terms of what the business is worth today. Oftentimes this can be a very good outcome. Now, in some situations, people sell a business because they're running 3 different businesses and they want to focus on another one. What I can say, at least personally, in working with hundreds of different people that own many, many different businesses, is that multitasking for the most part is a bit of a myth, right? You cannot be elite at anything more than one. You know, the expression, we can only serve one God, but you can only be so good at one thing that you put all of your focus into. And so even if you run 3 different businesses, only one is going to be elite. And so I get a kick out of it when you see, you know, the Twitter influencers saying, I have 77 passive income streams and 19 businesses that I own. And you know, if your business is making small investments into businesses that other people run, like a VC fund or something, that's a different business. But that is your business that then is making those minority investments. But to actually own, operate, run multiple businesses as the CEO, you know, it just doesn't work in real life. Nonetheless, that aside, the idea though of wanting to move to the next season of business, another business endeavor, whether it's the continuation of your existing business while monetizing some portion, whether it's pivoting to a different business you want to pursue, that's really the third kind of quadrant that we see as the reason for why people want to sell businesses. And number 4, again, this one might be a little bit bigger than some of the other slices of the pizza here, is we call it going to the beach, spending time with family, traveling, enjoying some of the fruits of all of the labor for all of these years. We sold a company at one point for someone who was 88 years old, and he said, the only regret I have in my whole career is that I didn't do this when I was 78 years old, because I just don't have the energy and the health that I did. Now again, we're not going to cast aspersions and say, you know, that someone who says they're going to work until they die at their desk, it's a bad idea, because, you know, everyone has their own flavor of ice cream as to what they enjoy, and some people, the work is in itself the end and they just love doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. However, for many people, the biggest driver is going to be more quality time with people they love, more travel, more exploring the world that they've contributed to but haven't necessarily extracted the joy from, particularly as years evolve, that they necessarily haven't gotten all the experiences out of that they'd like. Tying back to the beginning of this video, we say to anyone who asks us, should I sell my business? We always say, why not run it forever? And it's not because someone's going to drink the fountain of youth and be able to do that, but it makes you contemplate, well, if I didn't, what would I do? If I didn't, what would be the objective? What would be the next step? What things don't I like about what I'm doing? What do I want to do more of? You have one brain, you have one life, you have 100% of your battery or focus. How do you allocate that in the directions that you want? And what we say is, if you can't illustrate that, if you can't define or delineate that clearly or with conviction, it's probably not time to sell the business. And so, to round up this thesis, if you're contemplating selling a business, if you're starting to think, should I be thinking about selling a business, say, which of these buckets do you fall into? Do any of these things seem like the next thing you'd want to do? Philanthropic efforts, academic or teaching efforts, other or continued business endeavors, or just spending more time experiencing, traveling, living life with family. If one of those things is not compelling, it's probably not compelling to run your business. It's probably not compelling to sell your business. If you did sell your business and you got a giant bag of money but no purpose, you're going to try to buy the business back 2 years from now. You're going to start another business and kick yourself for having to restart all of the momentum. Again, you know, investment bankers, we get a bit of a bad run out there that we're bartenders asking if people need a drink, or barbers asking if people need a haircut. But when people come to us saying, should I sell my business, we want to give them the real advice. If you fall into one of these boxes and you have a defined objective as to where your time, resources are going to be allocated after, then yes, maybe time to do that. Could be a good thing to do in being able to get back your bandwidth and allocate it the right way. If not, don't sell. Not going to be a good idea right now. So that's a thought for this week. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hope the week's going well. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.